I was lucky enough, I put my name down on one of Heather Elkington, a former colleague of James's, on a thing on LinkedIn. They said, put your name down, and with somebody else, if you want to come to this event, which GoProposal and the team ran. And I was lucky enough to see James live, and it was fabulous. And he was on for 2 hours, and after 1 hour, I was trying to decide, do I rush out and change my life? No. Or do I sit here for another hour and take in more of this? Anyway, I stuck another hour, and I'm pleased that I did. One of the things he said is be audacious in your plans and hopes, and I took him up on it straight away, because I said, James, you won't fancy speaking at this conference I'm doing with you, and the audacity actually works. So this man is changing the accountancy profession for the better, I believe, and what I want him to do is to help us change the bureau payroll world for the better, and hopefully you'll find the next 90 minutes extremely interesting and rewarding. James Ashford.
Thank you. One person clapped once there, that was it. No, that's it. That's what I aim for. That's the type of... no, that's it. No, listen, it's all together or not at all. That's it. Thank you. So, I feel the need just to explain why I'm on crutches to start with. So I kind of like to be a fit, active, 40-plus-year-old guy, but I don't stretch very well. And I was playing football in the park with my kids like a couple of weeks ago, and this was me just coming onto screen there, as you can see, moments before tragedy struck. And we were just playing headers and volleys. There might have been a couple of beers just below the screen that you can't see. And the ball came across, and I've no idea why I thought I could volley a ball at that height. But I went for it, and I felt something go in the back of my leg. It was like I'd been shot. And I went down, and this was the ball that came over. And I don't know what it's like in other people's families, and I'm not making any sexist comments at all, but in my family, women give you no sympathy at all when anything happens. I'll get an applause for that, right? But the men do. The men came and they consoled me and looked after me, and I was okay. But I messaged my physio straight away. I got a fantastic physio, and I messaged him. I said, Joe, something's happened here. And he gave me a couple of things to test as I was talking on the phone to him. And he said, look, ice it, rest it. We'll get you booked in for a session very soon. We'll sort you out. Not a problem. My wife went away. A few days later, I was in the car taking my eldest daughter to buy a car. And I was wearing shorts, and I was driving. I said, my leg is just not right, it's really hurting. So I'm not surprised with the bruising. I'm like, what bruising? I looked at oh my God, I pulled the car over, I stopped the car, and I'm walking round, and this bruise, I'd not seen it, and no one had spotted it. So I texted to my wife, and I said, right, something has happened, and she says, right, I will give you sympathy now. This looks pretty bad, right? You just need to know what happened next. Unknown to me, she messaged her girlfriend group and said, my husband sent me this, maybe he does need some sympathy. Let's see how long it takes him to put it on social media. And let's see if he applies a filter or not. They were the two things, so I didn't know. So within 5 minutes, I'd posted this one. So my wife messaged me back and said, how come it's got so much worse since 5 minutes ago, since I saw you? Anyway, that was it. So I went to the physio, and saw the physio on the Wednesday. Joe saw it straight away. He said, there's something not right here. We need to get this checked out. He said, so he sent me for an MRI scan, which was booked in the next day, and he got the results back the same day as well. The next thing he texted me through was his heart rate monitor. He said, my heart rate monitor thinks I'm exercising. I'm not. I'm reading your MRI results. He said, it's the worst hamstring injury we've ever seen. We think the tendon's detached from the muscle. Thank you. Thank you. So he says, we need to get this sorted out. It needs to be sorted out very quickly. So there's only one of 2 surgeons in the country that can actually correct this and actually solve it. And one of them invented a procedure for repairing hamstring injuries. He works with professional athletes and footballers. I said, well, when can you get me in with him? He said, I'll get in with him tomorrow. The following day, I went for an ultrasound scan with him. The consultant looked at it, agreed that that is what happened. The tendon had detached from the muscle. And on the following Tuesday, I had the operation to correct it, and it's repaired. The reason I tell you this story is because with every service provider, there's always a huge range of care that you get from them. And it's possible that I could have gone to a physio, maybe they wouldn't have been able to book me in as quick as he did, and by the time I'd got to them, maybe the bruising would have gone, so it wouldn't have been as obvious that there was something problematic there. And maybe I would have just got a level of kind of physio care, a few massages, etc., tried to heal it, ice it, etc., and it would have healed. It turns out it would have healed, but it would have always been a source of kind of injury in the future. So this is quite an interesting thing in that what a lot of physios do, in fact what a lot of professionals do, is they solve the problem that they're facing with. So I've turned up with a problem with my hamstrings, they deal with a hamstring injury. My physio is very different, and what he does is he understands the person. So most physios will have will be patient first. He's person first, patient second. He deals with the person. He understands what I'm trying to do, which is to return back to full health and fitness and back to exercising, etc. So he put a very different care plan in place. And it's a very interesting notion, that person first, patient second. When I was a director of an accountancy firm, we actually introduced the concept there of person first, client second. And it's the moment you can start dealing with the person, you can start unlocking far greater value. And your value in the world is directly proportional to the size of the problem that you can solve. If you can solve greater problems for your client, your value goes through the roof. So what Joe had done was not only get this repaired very, very quickly, but also by the time I'd got out of the operation, had a full rehab plan in place, had been in touch with my personal trainer, agreed the plan with them, and within 6 months' time, I'll be back to full health. That level of care was £12,000, which is very different to what a normal physio would have offered me, but he took the time to understand what the solution is that I was actually looking for. And it's the same with lots of different professionals. Like I say, near where I live, in Doncaster, which is in Yorkshire, where God's from. I don't think God's actually from Doncaster, but certainly in the area of Yorkshire. I can get a car valeted, inside and out, my car valeted for 30 quid. I can also get my car valeted for £1,500 if I was to drive just a little bit further and get it done. My wife gets hers done at about £100 that it would be done, really good level, and another friend of ours has a subscription service where they actually come out and clean her and her husband's car as well. So there's a huge range of options with every single service. I was out walking the dog the other day and I thought, how much do different harnesses cost? We've got, I don't know if you've got dogs, but you'll have the Julius harness. Yes, you got the Julius harness? No, you haven't? You've got one, yes. You walk in the park and you see other people with a Julius harness. You're like, yeah, Julius harness, yes. You know. You nod at each other, knowing that you know harnesses, you know. So the cheap one, you can get one off Amazon for £5. The Julius harness is £45. Or you can get the Christian Dior harness. Any guesses at the Christian Dior harness? £650 for a Christian Dior harness. It looks like it's worth. You know what's quite interesting, when you see things like this, you think, well, who would afford that? Who would buy something like that? Must be the mega rich, the mega wealthy. The answer is anyone who wants it. And people have this strange notion when it comes to money that if something's a higher price, it must be people with a lot of cash. People will go into debt to get the things they want. I'm from a mining village, and I thought about this on the way here. I'm from a mining village, like I say, just outside Doncaster, where all the mines are shut, high levels of unemployment. I would almost guarantee that if I drove around that village long enough, I would find someone with a Christian Dior harness on their dog. I would almost guarantee it. So, this brings on to payroll. And I've been in this space now for 7 years, and I've worked very intimately and closely with lots of firms of different sizes, from armies of one right up to top 10 firms. And I get kind of a real privileged inside view of these firms. And I've been on the phone with CEOs when they've been in tears, and I've got phone calls from them, and they want me to go and chat to them and kind of help them through very challenging periods. So I really get to see the inside of workings of them all. And I think payroll, the scale of payroll in which people operate at, is far lower. I don't see a huge range of people offering high levels of service, charging high fees, etc., and commanding these higher fees. It's not that you don't do a high-level service. I know that's what you provide. But I see most people kind of fighting over the scraps of this end down here. And it's kind of a painful place to be. And when you go into these firms and you see these members of staff dealing with this and not being valued, not commanding high fees, perhaps not being valued by their clients for the service they provide, maybe not being valued by other partners or other areas of that business, whatever. It's a real shame because payroll is the one service that affects the most number of people. If you're delivering a service to your client, the fact that you pay all of their staff, you're affecting the most number of people in that company. If you kind of get it right, no one thanks you for it. And if you get it wrong, you will know about it. And an accountancy firm could lose a client over payroll getting done wrong because, like I say, it's a very personal service, very important service that gets provided. The reason I was excited to come and talk here today when Barry told me about this was because I believe that we've got a huge opportunity to change what this is and to change the landscape of payroll and to position it at a far higher level service. So the reason I think that the majority of people fight over the scraps at this end is because there is this belief that it's a low value service. I think there's a belief by clients. I don't think that certain software companies help with their adverts, that it's just a click of a button. You just press the button and all the payroll is miraculously done. What are you worrying about? So I think there's a perception in the market that needs changing. I think within accountancy firms, I think other departments within that firm may not have the belief that it's a high value service and see it as a low value service. But the biggest place it actually starts is with you guys. You have to value it first. You have to be sold on this first, guys. The first sale you have to make that this is a high value service is to yourself. And if you fundamentally don't believe that, then we can't begin to change anyone else. So it's really important, and I do a lot of work around mindset, and I believe this is actually the biggest piece of work that needs to be done here. It's not externally. It's with you guys and how you think and how you perceive what it is that you do. The next one is that when I see firms charging for payroll, they charge assuming that everything's going to go right. The way they price it, they assume that the client's going to just give you the information you want every single week or every single month on time in the format that you've asked for it with no chasing, and there's going to be no errors, and you know about all the new members of staff and all the levers and all the expenses are in, etc. It's priced assuming that everything's going to run smoothly and there's never going to be a problem with it. But there is always a problem with it. Very often you allow the client to control the process. And you get yourself into a problem because you see it as a low-value service or because it's perceived as a low-value service. It's something that maybe you don't have the confidence that you can go back and challenge clients. So if a client wants something done in a certain way, well, I know you want this information by 5 p.m. on Thursday, but I want to give you it at 10 a.m. on a Saturday morning. Like, okay, well, we'll accommodate you or we'll accommodate this. And I was with a payroll clerk the other week, and I was saying, they had, I think, 200 clients. You can't have 200 clients dictating your processes. You can't have 200 clients in control of this. You have to go back to them and explain that it has to work in your way. The only way we can guarantee these fees is if we stick to our process. This is our game, our rules, we're the expert, and if you want to play our game, you have to play our rules. This is not optional. And I explained this to her, I explained how we'd implemented this into many other firms, and when I left, didn't know if I was going to tell you this, but I will tell you this. She'd text the owner of the firm and while I was still there, and to say, can I have a word with you, as she was leaving. So she went and left. And she said, that guy in there is full of shit. She said to him, there is no way that clients will do as we ask them. We have to accommodate them or we will lose them. She said, I don't believe this is possible. And that's what I mean about the belief. The belief has to start with you. You have to believe that this is possible. And I'll come on to that in a second. The next one is, and this is a big one, and I'm going to tell you about me as a client soon, but the client doesn't understand the process. And if the client doesn't understand the process that you actually run, it's very difficult for them to value the service that you provide to them. So very often the client is in the dark, and this creates a huge issue of conflict as well, I believe. And the final one was a fear of getting it wrong, that we kind of are constantly treading around the client. We don't want to make mistakes. We're worried about it. And look, no process is ever perfect. And I know what happens in your head. You think, when we perfected our process, then I'll put my fees up. Then we'll increase it once we've got everything perfect. It's never going to be perfect. We're always work in progress. So this huge rift happens, but I do believe there is an opportunity for us to broaden this scale and for us to be operating at this high end. But I think with the nature of this, I think it's going to create a huge gap between the people that want to continue fighting over the bottom end of payroll and the people who want to elevate this service and increase the value and command higher fees for it. Does that make sense? Yeah? Now, guys, this all starts with your belief that it's possible. Now, at this moment in time, I'm not asking you to understand how you're going to do it. You don't need to know how we get there. This is really important, what I've learned over the years when it comes to goal setting. Whenever you set a goal, you don't need to know how you're going to achieve that goal at the time of setting it. And in fact, a goal should always be beyond your current understanding, your current knowledge, your current capabilities. That's the best place for you to set a goal. So the point is we don't have to necessarily fully understand at this moment in time how we're going to get there. I'm just inviting you to explore the idea that maybe it's possible. Would we feel confident enough to say maybe it's possible? No? Perhaps we could get there. Okay. So what we're going to be doing over the next hour or so, 45 minutes an hour, is we're going to be exploring how can this be possible? How can we move this up there? And I'm going to do my very best to bring you on this journey. Now, you can listen to me about 100, 200 words a minute, but there's a voice in your head talking at 1,000 to 2,000 words a minute, okay? And that's the voice of various other people in your head. It's not you, but it's various other things going on in your head. So you can be sat there going, yeah, that makes perfect sense. Yes, James, I would love to charge more. Yes, that makes total sense. And the voice in your head is going, we will never do that. That is never going to work where we're from. The partner will never take it on board or whatever. So there's a huge issue with mindset. And that's why people say you have to work on your business rather than in your business. That's true. But you have to work harder on yourself than you do on your business. You and your mindset is the biggest area for growth, the biggest area for opportunity, and it's you that needs to do the work. I'm afraid you need to accept responsibility for this, and the beauty of that is you're in control of changing this. Everyone here is in control of changing the perception of this. Okay, so this is not true for all firms, but I have seen firms that kind of paint this picture, so I'm just going to kind of share this as a rough idea. So if you think about which services are profitable within an accountancy business and which services are break-even, I've seen firms where payroll is a loss leader, where they lose money on payroll just to get clients in the door, or whatever excuse people want to give for why they're in that position, but they don't increase the price above that. Maybe it's break-even, but it's certainly a low profit-generating service largely. Bookkeeping services break even to kind of, again, a low-cost service. Compliance, not generating too much revenue. And this idea that advisory services, whatever that is, I don't think advisory services are advisory services as such, that's a different story, but that's where we're going to make all our money. And I would go to conferences when I first started here, and there were talks called Compliance is Dead, how you're going to make money from your advisory services. And I remember looking at this thinking, I don't think that's true. I don't think that compliance is dead at all. Why have we got this belief that advisory services is the key and this is where everybody's going to make the money? And where I think it comes from is they've looked at it and thought, well, we're not making money out of payroll, we're not making money out of bookkeeping, we're not making money out of compliance. I hope we can make money out of advisory services. And my thing is, you can't predict the future, but you can look at the past, and that can be a good estimate as to what the future is going to be. And my view is, if you can't make money out of them other things, it's very doubtful that you're going to make money out of that either. So we have to reinterpret this. So all these talks where they were saying compliance is dead, I was the person that started to book the trend saying, no, it's not. Compliance can be your most profitable services if you want it to be. And I'll explain how we did that in our firm. Clients won't pay anymore. People were very adamant that clients won't pay any more for various services. And I would just ask the question, which is, have you asked them? Have you asked them if they would pay any more? Oh, no, I haven't asked them. I just know they wouldn't pay any more money. All right, interesting. Clients don't value what we do. I love this one. Clients don't value what we do. And I would say to them, can you just talk me through the process of how you got this client in the first place? And they would explain it. So they would come in for a client meeting that would maybe be scheduled for 45 minutes, something like that. And they'd allow the meeting to overrun to an hour because they've not got a clear schedule in place. They've not got a hard stop at the end of that meeting. So the meeting's overrun to an hour. They've then agreed the services and the fees that they're going to be providing to them, but they've perhaps not got a clear set price for everything. So there's perhaps a little bit of bartering, a bit of negotiating that can happen. So the client may get the fee discounted ever so slightly. You know, you're charging me 500, if you can just get it under £500 a month, then I can go ahead with it. Okay, we'll do that. So there may be a bit of discounting, a bit of negotiating. And once you get working with the client as well, they may ask for extra things. I know you're running payroll for these 50 members of staff, but I forgot about Mavis. She only comes in on a Saturday morning and just cleans. Could you just please run payroll? Okay, we'll run payroll for her as well. We'll just add it. Don't worry about it. We'll run payroll for her as well. Not a problem. And then 6 months later, everyone's getting upset with the client because the client doesn't value what you do. And it's like, well, let's go back and let's have a look at what happened. You trained the client not to value what you do. You gave away your time for free, and now you're wondering why the client's constantly ringing you up asking for extra time because you trained them that your time has no value. You gave services away for free or you discounted your services, and now you're upset that that client doesn't value what you do. You've trained your client not to value what you do. How on earth can you be upset with them? And we have this idea, this notion that we're always looking for a diamond client, a dream client, a diamond client that's going to value what you do, pay your highest fee, do everything as you want, give you all the information on time, use the software you've asked them to do, etc. We're all looking for these diamond clients. Diamond clients do not exist. Diamond clients are created because diamonds don't look like diamonds. Diamonds are rough lumps of rock in the ground that need to be dug out, polished up, knocked into shape and cleaned up. Most of us here have diamond clients that we sat on, but we haven't dug into them and we haven't shaped them up and turned them into fantastic clients. But the opportunity in firms is absolutely huge. So the fact that clients don't value what you do is entirely our responsibility to make them value what we do. And I've heard everything else as well. There's too much competition. No one will pay any more where we live. The software companies make out it's just a push of a button. I'm just a bookkeeper. I'm only a payroll clerk. We'd lose all our clients if we charge more. I've heard every excuse over the years, and none of them stack up to be true. They'll be true if you want them to be true. If you believe they'll be true, they will be true for you. But if you believe that they don't have to be, then we can change that. And I've done this with thousands of firms around the world, in all different countries, of all different sizes. This was an interesting one. I went to see them recently in Newcastle. They've just repriced. So they didn't believe they had any diamond clients. They just finally got round to re-quoting every client for the services they need, but more importantly, want from us. We're only 10% in, and we've already increased our fees by £32,000, okay? So that's 320 grand worth of additional fees they're sat on with their current client base. This is a £1 million revenue firm. So these are the type of numbers and percentage increases I often see when people start to value their own services and start to charge for them right across the board. And we've got story after story of people who commonly charged £87 a month for their account, and now they're charging £1,000 a month. They've increased the client's fees from $495 to $2,500. Over and over again, I've got story after story of people of all different shapes and sizes, different levels of qualification, different parts of the country, different clients, etc., massively increasing fees from existing clients. So I know it's possible. Now, I think COVID was a really interesting experience in many ways, especially for you guys. You guys really copped for it. Because what happened, if you look at the COVID workload for payroll, it went through the roof. So none of us knew what the word furlough was, but you did after that, didn't you? Because you were explaining it over and over again. So all of a sudden, you've got this service in firms that's not been valued highly enough, that's not making enough money, and all of a sudden, the workload for that service massively increased. Bookkeeping increased slightly. Compliance increased as well because people needed to understand their tax position and how they'd be affected with various things. And we saw advisory services dropping in our firm, certainly. People didn't want all the high-level advisory services. They were trying to save money. They wanted things like scenario planning and things like that. But all of a sudden, the workload completely changed. And firms shut their door. I was hearing of accountancy businesses closing their door either permanently or certainly during that period because they just couldn't cope. And what did they blame? They blamed COVID because COVID came along, it massively increased the workload and caused all this problem. COVID wasn't the problem. The problem was there wasn't enough margin built into these services across the board for years and years before that. I speak to accounting firms and they haven't repriced clients for 10 years in some cases, even though the workload has increased and those clients have massively increased as well. So what happens is firms haven't built enough margin across the board of their services. The margin gets squeezed because they haven't been doing the right things for many, many years. Then all of a sudden COVID comes along and bang, squishes that margin, and they blame COVID. It wasn't that. It was the work that hadn't been done on increasing that margin before that. Now, at the time I was a director of an accountancy firm in Manchester called MAP, and we were in a strong position because all of our services were profitable and always have been. And in fact, compliance services was always our most profitable service because we provided a high level of service to our clients, we explained exactly what we're doing, and we ensured that they valued our service. Our average fee at that time was about £850 a month. It's significantly more in that business now. So the only service that kind of outstripped the profit margins that we had was payroll because of all the furlough claims, etc. And we were one of the firms that increased our fees. I know some of them didn't, some firms didn't in that sector, and that's absolutely fine, but we did, we increased our fees. So we maintained our profitability, and we actually grew throughout the whole COVID experience. So I'm just going to explain my story briefly, just so you can understand where I'm coming from with this and why I'm so passionate about it. But before I get into that, and we're going to be going into more depth and detail about how to solve some of these things, I have just kind of hit you with a few big ideas there, and we're going to have plenty of time for questions at the end. But is there anything kind of just bubbling inside anyone that you just feel you're going to burst if you just don't get it out now? Is there anything that anyone would like to share? Here we go.
I just want to say that this year I increased all my big payrolls. You know, like some of them by maybe 5% or 10%.
Yes.
And then I've also increased the sort of like the bottom, you know, like for the minimum amount.
Yes.
Multiple charge.
Yes, yeah.
And, you know, like everybody's absolutely fine.
Not a problem, you had no issue with it?
You know, nobody said a word to me.
Yeah, great stuff, brilliant. Anything else, anyone? Sir?
I was just, first few years of business, I didn't increase my prices once.
Yeah.
And then I did, and I went like, yeah, here's a 3% price rise. And some of them moaned about it, some of them didn't. And then from then on, I've increased it year on year.
Yeah.
Everything is going up year on year.
Yeah.
And they're all accepting it now.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good. Yes? Hi.
I charged for furlough, just so you know.
Well done.
Not for the claim, but for the calculation.
Yeah.
I'm sad to hear that payrollers did the calculation and the accountants charged the actual claim. That's the easy bit. Just putting it out there. Please God, there'll never be a next time, but next time make sure you charge for it.
Yeah, definitely.
I put my fees up for the first time in 8 years in January by 5% across the board after 8 years. Not one person said anything. One client came back and went, "We still don't charge enough."
Yeah, I will just, well done for increasing fees. I'm just going to pull you up all on it a little bit, because the numbers you all said were 5%, 3% and 5%. Yeah? 10%. Okay, I'll give you 10%. But the other numbers are all around inflationary charges, and it's not enough. And so in my book, my second book, Untapped, and I can share some of this data with Barry if he wants to share it as well, but there was kind of, in terms of going back and looking at all the different factors that affect a price increase, there's kind of about 10 or 11 factors, and only one of them is inflationary increases, and it's the one I encourage you not to hide behind at all. It's really easy to do it. But maybe you might have services that need to increase by 20%, 50%, 200%. Like, whatever that may be, we shouldn't use kind of inflationary charge as the factor for where we're setting our fees, but we sometimes set it at where we feel comfortable because we then take it over that amount. But like I say, I've got many stories of people. I was speaking to a guy recently, and accountants especially do this. What happens is they'll get a new client on board, and they'll say, we need access to your software so we can just make sure everything's in place. That's not why they want access to the software. The first thing they do when they get in the software is they scroll down and see how much their previous accountant was paying. I guarantee it, everyone does it. And then they'll offer a price either slightly more or slightly less, but not really in terms of what the client needs. They're not asking the real questions and understanding what that client actually wants and having the confidence to present it. And a guy in our group shared recently where a client had come to him that was paying £1,000 a year, and he went back and he said it's going to be £25,000 a year. And the client signed up on the spot. And all of you guys here today are probably not far off having the right mindset. You might need a bit of tweaking, but you won't be far off because you're here today. But you've got someone who you will have invited to come with you today, and they say, we haven't got time for that. I've got too much work to do. I'm not coming to that. And that was the person that needed the work, or there'll be a partner there. And it's especially difficult in very large firms as well. I was working with a firm recently, nearly 30 partners, and most of the partners were on board except one influential partner. And there's a phrase I'm always really wary of, right? And it's the phrase which is, yeah, but, okay? A yeah, but sounds like yes, but it's not. A yeah, but is a no in disguise, okay? But a yeah, butter wants everyone to think that they're saying yeah, but they're not. They're saying but, okay? And you can just have one person that is against that initiative, or you're not doing it with you can increase the fees of everyone else, but you're not increasing my clients' fees. You know, I play golf with them on a Friday, I'm not upsetting them, I'm not having that conversation with them. And there needs to be a collective mindset as to what it is they're actually doing and the effects of that client. It's a huge, huge problem. I don't know how to solve it. I've tried to solve it with some larger firms, and we're trying to get partners to align. It's quite difficult. But that's one of the reasons kind of I've produced the books. And if anyone wants the audio versions, I can send you the audio versions for free to share if people want them. But they're quite a useful thing to get people collectively buying into it. Even if you say, like, we're all going to listen to this one chapter on why money's not the issue with our clients, whatever. We all need to get on board with this. And sometimes it might need testing. You know, I'm a big believer of sometimes people struggle with making decisions. And in my business, we've always advocated running an experiment. Okay, well, let's not make a sweeping decision that we're going to do this across every client, but let's run an experiment with these 10 clients, and we'll get the learnings back, and we'll share it with everyone else, see how that goes, and then we'll try it with the next. You know, that's the way to do it sometimes when people need bringing on board. But yeah, I feel your pain, because that is the biggest problem. Thank you. Yes, sir.
I was just going to add to that. So when I joined my firm last year, prices have been increased since 2017. So first thing I did was increase them by 10%. But I had a phone call from the partner only about maybe 5-6 weeks ago, saying the whip on this client is 160 quid, but the annual fee is £300. Why is the whip so high? My response was, why is the fee so low?
Yeah.
And he went, because they won't pay. And he said, in the tradition, but across the board, no one will pay the fees that you're trying to do. My response was, we've got 500 clients just in this office. They will pay what we're charging. Why will yours not? And he sent me a link to an Essex accounting firm saying 16 quid a month for a director and payroll. And I went, okay then, they don't have our overheads, our costs, our office costs, our insurance, software, yada, yada, yada. Fair play. They can do that.
Yeah.
We can't afford to do that. We have to do this. They went, not doing it. I'm fine. It's on your line. It's your loss. Not my problem. But it's those partners that we have to get around to go, okay, fine. Why will they not pay this? Have you asked them?
Yeah.
Have you actually spoken to that client and went, look, we've not changed the fee in X amount of time. Everyone knows, and you said don't do it, but actually inflation has kicked in. Our costs have increased. Why would they not then follow suit?
Yeah.
Are they happy with the service we give? Yes. Okay. Well, unfortunately, that's going to cost you more.
Yeah.
If you don't want to pay that cost, here you go, hit the link, pay 16 quid a month.
Absolutely. And so many other facts as well. Like a big thing, especially in your sector, is complexity. The complexity of the work that you do. Let's say if you're doing pension claims or whatever it is that you're doing, running pension for people, you've now got more hoops that you've got to jump through. So your complexity is increased, but then typically what you're not good at is then communicating that complexity to the client and explaining why those fees have increased. So there's so many factors as to why things need to be going up. Yeah, it's a big problem. Again, I don't know what the answer is, unless you just need permission, really, or maybe you don't need permission, but to kind of run a test in your area, and not just on fees, but profit margin. Also, what if you have measures like Net Promoter Score of customers as well. But the other one is ENPS score, which is your employer Net Promoter Score. You know, if you've got a team of more highly motivated, so we've increased the motivation of our team, the workforce are far happier, we increased the profit margin of this area here, and the customers are more happy, then what's your problem? Like, sometimes we need to build up a case to slowly bring people on board. Anyone else? Should we dive in? Should we crack on? All good?
I was just going to say something very similar.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
All our payroll costs are passed on to the partners. So it's then down to the partner then to decide what they want to bill their client.
Yeah.
So we get that cost under payroll.
Yeah.
So we value our service. It's then down to the partner then to pass on if it is the partner that's their client.
Yeah.
It's then down to them whether or not they want to undervalue the service or whether they want to overvalue the service. Entirely up to them.
So let's just consider how crazy that is, right? So let's say you've gone to a restaurant. You're like, yeah, I love this meal. I want a fillet steak, please. How much is it going to cost? I'll have to go and ask the chef, and it'll depend which chef I ask. So they now have to go, the waiter or waitress will have to go into the kitchen, pick the chef that they're going to cook this meal, and ask that person how much, well, who is it? Who's sat in there? Could you imagine what a ridiculous process that would be versus sitting down and thinking, what is the profit margin that we need to deliver this service? But not only to deliver the service, not only to solve all of the problems that we can encounter with it as well, but for us to be developing that service, for us to be able to provide an incredible experience to that client, for us to be able to invest in our own training so that we can keep getting better and better. Unless those margins are in there, you can't invest that in improving the processes, systems, improving yourselves, and so you're falling behind. And so we have to invest at those levels for us to be able to do all of these other things. And one of my views is that you can go to a restaurant and order the most complicated meal for a large table, and a junior member of staff could process that order and be able to correctly price that order as well. Yeah? For the chef to then go and prepare the meal. That's exactly how accountancy firms should work. And if you can't, you will have problems.
Yeah. I mean, we see how much it costs us as a service, and that's what we're reporting our costs.
Yeah.
Surely that even though you're valuing your service, when the partner then doesn't do it, doesn't charge that value, your service is devalued by the client immediately.
Yes.
Because that's what the partner's doing. So you're getting your revenue, but your service still isn't valued outside of your own department.
Correct. Okay, so we're going to press on. So I'll run through my story really, really briefly. So I always knew I wanted to run a business. I don't know why. My parents didn't run businesses. They worked for companies. But I had kind of some family members and some friends whose parents did run businesses, and they seemed to drive nicer cars, have nice holidays, and just seemed to be more chilled and relaxed and like having more of a laugh than my dad was. So it kind of was something that was appealing to me. So I always wanted a business. I attempted many different businesses, and recently on LinkedIn I did my list of many business failings. But one of them was a marketing agency that I built up, and that business failed a bit more spectacularly. That it kind of caused a lot, I had a team by that point. We had to remortgage the house, lost a lot of money. My wife and I split up for a time after that. Just caused a lot of problems. And the sad thing about that business was we never made any huge mistake. I just made lots of small mistakes. And they were all around the finance function of the business. So every single mistake was just taking me 1 degree off course, and I didn't realize where I was. So every issue takes you 1 more degree off course, and then when my blindfold was lifted, I realized where I was, which was on the edge, and I was unable to pull back out of it. And they were all small things. I didn't have a payroll clerk because Megan can run payroll. She just presses the button on the software. I don't need to pay for that service. Don't be ridiculous. So I remember this one small thing. I might say the phraseology incorrect here, but she was paying the payee, paying it correctly every month, etc. And then after a time, I got this brown envelope on my doorstep saying, tax rebate, a few £1,000s. I'm like, Becky, this is brilliant. This is the break, we've been on the breadline for ages. This is the break we need. Let's splash out and have a holiday. We deserve it. So I think it was like £3,500. Took £3,500, went on a brilliant holiday, came back to another brown envelope on the doormat. And what's this? You owe £3,500. We'd been paying the payee into the wrong account that was over, and then we'd not been spending it on this one here. Little mistakes like that, but as a small business, you only need to make a few £1,000 decisions, and then you don't just have lots of cash that you can then kind of call upon. So we just made loads of small mistakes over the years that took us to this point, and that business failed. After that, I decided that because we had a lot right, I was going to figure out how to crack this, and I was going to invest in my own training. I traveled and invested in courses and conferences like this one, worked with some brilliant people to really understand what makes a business successful. And I then got to implement those strategies into various businesses. Some were huge, some were hundreds of millions, tens of millions, and help them to scale their businesses with these ideas. And eventually met an accountancy firm in Manchester. And I've been working with this guy in a mastermind group, and I needed a new accountant. So I went over to see him. So as I was saying, I travelled from Doncaster, Yorkshire, where God's from, to Manchester, where it rains all the time. There's one tunnel you go through, and I'd be like wearing t-shirt and shorts and stuff, and then you just hit this wall of rain at the other side of this tunnel. You're like, what am I wearing here? Anyway, went to see him. And then my current accountant at the time, I was paying £200 a month, and he tried to increase my services to £250 a month, but I didn't see the value in what he was offering me, so I said no to it. Went to see Paul at my accountancy place. He took me through all of the services, but he really took the time to understand what was important to me and what we were trying to achieve, not only in my business, but in our life as well. Went through everything, and the set of fees he presented to me, I think, was £650 a month, and I did see the value in them. And I said, it's brilliant, where do I sign? And he said, oh, it doesn't work like that. We have to send you a proposal and an engagement letter, and you sign that. And I'm like, okay, cool, whatever. So I left the office. I kept checking my phone, got on the train, got back to Doncaster, checked my phone, nothing. Got back to my wife, and she said, how did it go? I said, it's brilliant. This is the firm that we need. We're going to invest fully into the finance function. We're going to be sorted here. She said, well, how much is it going to be? I said, it's about £650 a month. She's like, geez, what are we getting for that? I'm like, I have no idea, but it sounded brilliant. She says, well, I think you need to get it checked out with some other people. So I checked with other people. Indeed, it was far more than anyone else was spending. So it starts to make you question what it is that you're doing. So we ended up taking a few services out, etc. And I went back to Paul and I said, look, I loved what you offered me, but the experience I got was really poor. And he said, yeah, but we're better than most of the other accountancy firms out there. I'm like, yeah, but I'm not comparing you to them. I'm comparing you to anyone I want to compare you to. I booked my ticket on the Trainline app, and the instant I did it, it was there. I got off the train, went onto an Uber, it was sat outside the train station and got me to your office. I was sat in the office, there was a book on the side, I ordered it, I was reading it the following morning for my breakfast, and I still hadn't got your proposal. Rightly or wrongly, fairly or unfairly, I'm comparing you to these other businesses, and you told me that you were a cloud expert, you told me you were going to save me time, it took you 4 days to get me a proposal. I'm not judging you based on what you're telling me, I'm judging you based on what I'm experiencing, and so far it's been crap. So we need to sort it out. Thankfully, I'd solved this problem in other businesses, and then it was through that process that we ended up developing GoProposal for that firm originally. Another firm heard about it, and we developed it, and had thousands of firms around the world using it. I then wrote Selling to Serve and wrote Untapped as well to kind of share the principles that we've been doing in that business. And I built GoProposal up, and the whole point of it was to build it and exit from that business. And then 2 years ago, almost the day, we sold that business to Sage. At the time of when we exited that business, it was doing about £1.5 million in revenue, and we were spending about £5,000 a month on the finance function of that business. So people think that's investing a lot. I think it's investing at the right level. And obviously we came to sell to a PLC, and the first thing they want to do is look through your last 3 years of monthly management accounts, go through everything with a fine-tooth comb. They bring in top 4 firms to then go through everything in an even finer tooth comb, and everything absolutely stacked up because of the level of investment that we'd made in that finance function from the start into that business. And that was my big thing. So the reason why I'm really passionate about this space is I want your businesses to do well. I want you guys to do well personally, but I want you to be able to impact your clients positively as well. I want to help you to ensure that your clients are investing at the right level into the finance function of their business so that they don't fail. And you cannot provide the right level of service if you're not charging enough, because you can't be investing in the systemization and the training if you don't do that. So if you don't charge enough, you create a lose-lose for everybody. Only when you move over that and you start charging the right fee can you create a win for yourself and a win for your clients. And that's what I'm really interested in achieving. So we spoke earlier about mindset, but there's 2 parts that you need to get this right if you want to move forward with this, guys. So we're going to dive into this now. The first thing you need is the map. You need to know how to go from where you are to where you want to be. So typically the way that businesses work is they will have this growth and then they hit a plateau. And I think payroll is a service that's been plateauing for a while. And then we kind of want to make this breakthrough and get to the next level that we talked about. Well, you've got two ways of making a breakthrough. One is you can just try and figure it out yourself. Just test loads of stuff out and try it, and you may eventually get there, or you might not, I'm not sure, but you can try and figure it out. Or you find people who are getting the results that you want, and you say, can you just show me how to go from that much a month to this much a month, and can you kind of just tell me the fastest way to get there, and you just model what other people are doing. You don't need to reinvent this stuff. People are already doing this, so we can learn a lot from them. But as well as the map, we need the mindset. And as we were talking about earlier, we need the collective mindset. We need everybody to be on board with this. That's harder. The bigger the firm you've got, the harder it is. But it actually starts with your mindset. That is something you're in control of. You can work on that, and then you can start to build that out and get your team to be on board with that as well. The books that I've got here that we can share with you, and that we can send the audio books as well, they work really well as a book club. So you can take your team or the larger firm, it's entirely up to you, and you can kind of say, well, we're going to read this over the next 6 weeks or whatever. We'll meet up each week and discuss the learnings from it, and then at the end of it, what we're actually going to implement. It's the fastest way I can help you to kind of adjust that mindset. And the reason why it needs to be done is because the issue you get is that the way that most client relationships start out at their core is with an imbalance. And it's the imbalance in the relationship that causes all of the other problems in the firm. And if you can fix this imbalance at the core, you can solve 99% of the rest of the problems you encounter. So typically what happens is the client relationship starts out by you agreeing to do more work than you're getting paid for. Over time, the client will ask for extra things from you. Typically, if you have to go through a partner, as you explained, to get a price increase, you've got a member of staff and the client pestering you saying, yeah, but I've just got this mortgage application doing, I need this now. You think, right, I'll just do it for you. It's easier to just do the work than it is to actually go through a partner and get a price agreed. So you end up doing all this extra work for free. Meanwhile, my business is growing and your fee isn't adjusting at the same rate. On top of that, if you're doing work for free for clients, you're also exposing yourself to unnecessary risk because you won't have it all covered off in an engagement letter. It might not be covered by your AML as well. So you have this huge imbalance, and we wonder why we're encountering all these problems. It's the equivalent of putting something, a brick, in a washing machine and wondering why bits start to fall off it. And what all these firms are doing is trying to fix the outside bit. I've got these bits breaking off here. I need to try and solve it and get all these bits here, and wondering why everything's just falling apart all over the place, rather than fixing the imbalance at the center, which is causing the rest of those problems. So if I could just give you an example, let's say you had a client, and this could just be payroll, but it could be a combination of services as well with that client. Let's say you went from here now and you've pulled up a client and you find there was an imbalance there of you doing £550 a month worth of work for the client, but they're only paying you £495 a month. This may be because they've discounted you slightly, they wanted to pay less than 500 quid, you've added some extra things on. How many of you would look at that imbalance and think that is a major problem that I must fix right now as a matter of absolute urgency? Who is it, kind of a level 9 or a 10 in here, would see that as a huge problem? 1, 2, 3, 3 or 4 people, okay. Who thinks it's like a mediocre problem? You've all got to put your hands up at some point in these questions, by the way. A mediocre problem? Not a problem at all. Not really a problem. Okay. You didn't all put your hands up there, just in case you didn't notice that. Yeah, 7 out of 10, but okay. But not a major problem. 7 out of 10 problem is probably not a big enough problem to need to go and fix it. It never kind of gets onto the priority list.
Halfway down your to-do list.
Yeah, so which keeps getting more and stuff piled onto it. Okay. So
if you've got 100 of them, though, then that's a problem.
it is, but it's a problem with one of them. Okay. Because what happens is we look at this and we think, well, it's just 55 quid off the mark. £550 a month, it's still a decent fee. They're only paying £55 less than they are doing. But the issue is if you are making 20% profit on that client in your firm, if that's the goal, you have just halved the profit of that client, which means that you now need 2 £495 clients to make the same amount of profit as a £550 client. And we wonder why we're working so hard. And so when we go back to our partners and we explain the issue that we're not charging enough, this is what we need to explain, because this is why we've got people working ridiculous hours. This is why we've got people working late. I speak to firms, this is a slightly different subject, but when people are doing tax returns, and I ask them, how many of you are doing tax returns in January? And people are like, well, we do. You're smiling. Do you do tax returns in January? But other people do. Yeah. The majority of tax returns get done in January, okay? If one single tax return is being done in January, you have got huge problems in that business. You are not in control of the business, the clients are in control of the business, and you're not charging enough, and you're not valuing your service enough. I've got firms who complete all the tax returns by September. And if you're not getting your clients to complete the tax returns by that point, you're also not being fair to the client, because they do not know their tax liability far enough ahead to be able to plan for it. But the reason why people don't do that is because they're not in control of the processes and they're not charging enough to be able to assign resource to that service, to get on the phone to that client, and to make sure that you get the information off them when you need it. So, and it all comes back to this, because we're not charging enough in the first place, so we're just trying to get work out the door, and we're happy if we get it done on time. I see all these firms posting on LinkedIn, celebrating on 31st of January, yay, we've got our last tax return getting done on time. And I look at that and think, what are you doing? That is a night you will never be a firm I would want to work with. You've not got your stuff together. The majority of firms that I see, regardless of their size, could typically increase their fees by anywhere between 20 and 40% from their existing clients alone, just by going back and charging properly for everything that you're doing, not by doing anything weird, not by having any weird sales conversations or doing anything you'd feel uncomfortable with. You could increase your revenue by that amount and probably lose a few clients as well in the process. I'm working with a particularly large firm at the moment to do this. They've got a goal of where they're trying to increase the revenue by, and also to lose 10% of their clients in the process. We currently, I think, we're about a quarter of the way through, and we've increased the revenue by 22% and only lost 1% of clients. So we're going to increase the fee further because we need to lose more clients. We're not losing enough because they can increase their profitability even further. So what we must do, guys, is we must restore this balance at the core. That's the first thing that we must do. And once we've done that, then we can look at how we can maximize and optimize that even further, so we're delivering the most value we possibly can to each of our clients. So when it comes to the fee that we charge, what are some of the factors that would affect what someone is prepared to pay? Just in general, it can be for payroll, but it can be for any service. What would some of the factors be that would determine where you place your price? The quality of the service you provide, yeah, sure. What they need from you, yeah. The size of their business, yeah. Your location, okay.
The level of experience that needs to do that particular job.
Yes, yeah, great. Anything else? What you ask them to pay, yeah, yeah.
How much they actually value.
How much they value what you do, yeah. Okay, great one. Anything else?
Your expertise, you know?
Your expertise, sure, yeah, yeah. Say again, sorry? What they're used to paying already with their competitors. Yeah, okay. Okay, so how much it would cost them to do it, and risk of getting it wrong, great, yeah. Yeah, brilliant. I think you've covered most of them off there. So the perceived value by the client, what their personal preferences are, their income and budget, what the market competition is, supply and demand for that service, economic conditions, perceived scarcity of that service, your brand reputation, marketing and advertising, quality of the product or service, overall customer experience, and trust in the result and outcome. And there are other things as well. Risk was a good one. And what happens is we look at this list and we think, well, actually, most of them are outside of our control. The clients, how they value us, what their budget is, what their personal preferences are, what everyone else is charging for that service, the supply and demand of that service, etc., what's going on in the economy, etc. All of these things are outside of our control. What we need to realize is that actually a lot of them are in your control. And you can bring them back into your control, because with my previous accountant, for example, I was spending £200 a month, and I did not see the value in spending £250 a month. Well, is that my fault or his fault? Because what I did next was I then started investing £650 a month, which escalated to £5,000 a month, maybe a little bit more. And in fact, over the next 5 years of the growth of that business, I invested over £250,000 into the finance function of that business. I was the same person. I never changed. I've never spoken to my previous accountant since. I'm sure he was glad when I left, because he thinks I was a massive pain in the backside and I never valued what he did. Yet I became a great client for the next firm because he turned me into that. But my values, my perception, my income was all the same, but through education, I was turned into become a better client. It's the same with things like income and budget. People have an income and budget, but it's based on what their priorities are and what they think is important. I'll speak to payroll clerks, and they're only charging this fee, and it's because their client doesn't have much money, and they can't spend any more money on this. I'm like, they're spending more than that on a round of drinks on a Friday after work than they are with your entire service. What are you talking about? All the kids have got iPhones. They've got 60-inch TVs on the wall. They're finding money somewhere. You've just got to convince them that they need to spend some of that money with you and that what you provide is hugely important. So when we start to look at these, I always believe that we have to accept responsibility for it, because by accepting responsibility, it puts you in a position where you are able to respond and where you are able to do something about it. And it's rarely actually got anything to do with money. Even if somebody comes to you and says, it's got something to do with money, it's too expensive, we can't afford this, I can get this cheaper elsewhere, very often, because you've heard those things that are connected to money, we think, therefore, it must have something to do with money. It's rarely got anything to do with money. And it's nearly always got something to do with confidence and trust. And so, if they're saying that to you, it's either they don't have the trust in you to deliver that service, they don't have a trust in the process that you're delivering that service with, they don't have a trust in the outcome that you're promising them, or this is a big one that people don't even know about. They don't have a trust in themselves. They don't have a trust in themselves to make the right decision because they've made bad decisions before. They bought the wrong car, signed up to the wrong phone contracts, married the wrong sister, whatever it is, right? They've made mistakes in the past and they don't want to make another mistake in the future. And so what we have to do is give them confidence. We're having our house done at the moment. It's going to sound a bit fancy, but we've got an interior designer working on a few of the rooms in our house, and we've just got rid of her, okay? And I've said to her, look, we're cutting back on some things. We need to scale the budget back. We're looking at ways to save costs, so we're going to do this ourselves. So that's why we're getting rid of you. And so we did. It had nothing to do with that. I'd completely lost confidence in her, and I'd lost confidence in the outcome that she was promising us, and in the process that she was following. They were my big things. But all she heard was price. So what she immediately said was, well, I'll try and do it for less. Here's the kicker. If I don't have confidence in you now with what you're doing, and you now say, I'm going to do this, I will try and do this service for less, do you think that's going to increase or decrease my confidence further? Massively decrease it. So you've heard the thing I've said to you, that this has got something to do with money, had nothing to do with money, and you've not asked those questions to figure out, well, is there actually a trust and a confidence issue here? And I can show you how to stop this in the first place. And then your response to it just makes the whole situation worse. And that's where we get to a point where, how on earth can we survive here? Because that firm down the road are doing tax returns for £16 a year or £16 a month or whatever it is that they're charging. How on earth can we compete with that? So we're going to have to reduce our fees further. And it just causes everybody a problem.
Why did you not just tell them?
Who? I
Interior designer, you weren't happy with them.
told her a few times already that we wasn't happy, and she just wasn't listening. And I kept saying, you're not in control of this process. So I did go back a few times. So at the end of it, I'm like, you're not listening to this, so I'm just going to have to stop it and just come up with another excuse. Yeah, so I did try. I'm quite good at having conversations with people, so I did have a few of those, but just wasn't sinking in. So the way that we would go and agree fees with the client, I'm a big believer of agreeing fees whilst you're with the client. People are actually nervous about doing this because they're scared of having that conversation of saying, this is how much it's going to cost, or this is what your fees increase by. My view is, you've got to have the conversation at some point. So you're either going to agree, you can have the discussion while you're with them, or you're going to wait till they've gone and you're going to try and get hold of them while they're going into meetings or on the school run or whatever, which is a far worse situation. So I'm a big believer of being able to sit with a client and going through and putting in things like what their revenue is and going through exactly what their payroll is going to be, how many members of staff they've got, and exactly what you're doing for them, whether it's monthly pension filing, whether you're paying staff salaries, etc., P11Ds, whatever it is that you're doing for the clients, but agreeing that there and then with them and being able to have that mature conversation about the fee and presenting it very confidently. And this actually takes it away. It's not you saying the price, not me saying how much it is, it's the system saying it. So whatever it is that you use to be able to do that, I think it's very important to have that confidence to be able to present it whilst you're with the client and to stand up for that fee. This is, I'm not trying to tell you how to charge or what to charge, etc., but I just thought I just wanted to share this. This is what kind of people in our community have used for a while now as best practice, but when charging for kind of running payroll, to charge a larger amount for that first member of staff because you've got to open the file and get things going, and then as the number of members of staff increase. So for example, this is just an example here. I don't think I'm trying to get people to agree to these prices or whatever that may be. So for one member of staff, in this case here, it's £20, and then for 2 to 9, it's £7. So if you used to run payroll for 3 members of staff here, it's not 3 times 7, it's 20 plus 2 times 7. Make sense? So it's kind of a cumulative pricing methodology. So I know a few people use that, but again, there's different ways of pricing, but that kind of stacks up. But the other thing is I do believe it's important to split out all of the different things that you do for a client or can do for a client, and to make sure they're all itemized and that you're communicating the value of all of those things as well. Very often, something like payroll can just be grouped in, just like bookkeeping can as well, but you're not doing yourself justice by splitting it out into all those different components, because you've got to be able to communicate those complexities. The other part of that equation then is the scope. So if you've agreed the fees for those services, you've also then got to be able to communicate the scope of all of those services at the agreed level, so that every single stakeholder involved in this client relationship understands what's been agreed. And the moment it goes out of scope, even by £5, that fee has to be increased. The moment you give away running one payroll for one person, one service for free, you are training that client that your services have no value. If you go to Asda and do a big shop, and you've spent 500 quid, and you get to the car and you realise you wanted a packet of chewing gum and you go back in, they're not going to give you the packet of chewing gum just because you spent 500 quid. There is value in that packet of chewing gum, and you're going to have to pay for it. I would actually celebrate the fact that if a client comes back to you and says, can you just do this extra small thing for me, I would see that as a great opportunity to charge for that client for that thing. And if the client turns around incredulously and says, what, you charge me? I'm spending £3 a month with you, you charge me extra £5 for this? Absolutely. We charge for everything, and there is no way I can deliver the level of service that you would actually be happy to pay for if I don't charge you for it, and you should be doing the same in your business. The very fact that you've asked me why I'm doing it makes me concerned that you're not doing it in your business. Would you like us to do an audit of how you charge for your fees? Would you like us to do that? Yes?
I must admit, I've been bad on this, because sometimes one or two of my clients will ask me to do something extra, and they say, we'll pay you extra. And I say, oh, it's all right, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, because there's no value in what I do. It's just easy. It's dead easy what I do. And that's where...
Well, I'm a sole trader. And
No, I'm just a sole trader. Right, you said 2 of my things on my list in 2 sentences there. I'm just...
and I make a lot of profit.
we can still make more. It's fine.
Yeah, but I don't want to increase my fees too much, because I don't want to get into the next VAT category.
Okay, but we've said a few reasons there as to what the issue is. So very often we can get into that mindset, but we need to... I'm not here to tell you how to run your business. You run your business how you want to run your business. But to my mind, I would charge for everything. Yes, Barry, go for it.
What you're doing, though, Kathy, I know you don't need the money, you don't want the money, you're quite happy. But you're establishing a level of expectation in the marketplace that some things come free, and you're adversely affected.
Well, I'll stop doing it then. Well, I'll
Yes,
say,
please.
yes, I will charge you then. And have a bit extra on the bill. I will, because I haven't charged it yet, so...
Yes.
I will have a tenner on or something.
There you
If every one of us in this room did this,
not even about us as separate firms. You've got to think that each individual team member may be doing something for their clients that you aren't aware of.
Absolutely.
Just to put time down on the clock that we aren't charging for, and then we wonder, oh, why is the payroll taking X amount longer this month? And we can't charge any more because we haven't spoken to the client about it.
Yes.
But the team member doesn't say that, and that's why we're going to be looking at team members taking responsibility for billing and everything else.
Yes.
So that they can do the billing as soon as it happens and charge.
100%. Team members have to be able to do it. So one of our rules in our firm was the most junior member of staff should be able to price the most complicated clients. And we would review our fees, and this is why I advocate, it's called the 1-3-12 rule, but we would review payroll fees every 1 month. For every single client, every payroll fee gets reviewed every single month. Bookkeeping fees get reviewed every 3 months, and every other service gets reviewed annually. And everything's on a monthly bill. These are kind of foundational thoughts that I guess I make an assumption that people have. But if you don't have monthly billing for all of your services, it then becomes very hard to make these incremental adjustments. And this is why you can't operate in isolation. You need everyone on board with you. So the very first thing that we would get firms to do is to get all of their clients onto monthly billing. So everyone's paying, so your tax return is paid by the time you get to the end of the year. You've been paying it off by the time you get to that point, because then it's very easy to be incrementally increasing those fees. It's harder when it's like, well, I need to increase that monthly bill, but your annual bill is this, and then we've got these extra charges here. It becomes really complicated. And then especially, you then throw in multiple branches, throw in multiple partners, and you have a nightmare situation.
Just to go on to the billing thing, I would have thought the majority of people in this room would do the billing, or there'll be a partner that does the billing, which to me seems crazy, because you're doing your most expensive staff member, doing the non-chargeable work, get that out.
Yeah, crazy.
Surely you'd want to be getting the cheapest staff members you've got to go, right, okay, WIP is this, the bill is this, okay, you've got a question, you raise it.
Absolutely.
Just get it out.
Yeah, 100%. Go back to the restaurant analogy. It's like going back to the chef. Chef, can you now stop what you're doing, and can you now figure out what we should charge this table? It makes no sense. Why would you interrupt and stop the busy person? We've got to remove the bottlenecks. And everyone needs to be empowered to be able to do this.
Well, when I was a payroll manager for an accountancy firm, I refused to do any bills.
Yeah.
The small business manager to do all my bills.
Yeah. But to my mind, every member of staff.
I wouldn't do it on like like the 6-minute thing or whatever. It's like I said, no, I'm not doing that. It's a set fee. It's a set monthly fee.
Yeah.
For the payrolls. And when I started there, the payroll was a loss leader. And in the end, they were making a lot of money.
Yeah.
Because I said that I just refused point blank. I wasn't doing it the way that
Yeah.
I've always done it.
That's great. Great. Yes.
Yeah, 2 points. I think one brings us back, and I think everyone in this room would agree that the way we bill payroll is balmy anyway. So you create a very complex situation, which you then have, and then that's the reason why you're not having more junior staff to do it, is they haven't developed a process, the systems aren't cut up to do it, so it's very complex, so, and you don't invest the time at the more senior end to train. I've worked in Deloitte, EY, don't train people, so then you ask them to do it, oh, they get it wrong, goes to pay for the partner, it's all wrong, so you just constantly cut yourselves out.
That's
so
it. And it's the core problem. There's, in every firm, there's surface problems and there's core problems. This is a core problem. This is the core problem. And it creates all these other problems. And what everyone's doing, like the washing machine, they're trying to fix all this other stuff. Let's just fix this. And it's solved already. And like we've already fixed it. And not only payroll should be simple, but I mean, how many people here would charge an onboarding fee for each new member of staff as well? A one-off onboarding fee to onboard a new staff, yeah? How many people would charge an offboarding fee for each leaver as well? Yeah, so all these are services, all work that you do, all things, hoops that you have to jump through and things that you have to get right. Everything here is chargeable. And again, this comes back to you valuing it first. If you don't value it, how on earth can you expect your client to value it? I'm conscious of time, and I appreciate people don't want to be eating soon. I don't want to get to that hunger point where you don't listen to these last few bits I'm going to say, because it's good stuff, this. Okay. So, one of the things I put into my accountancy place that I got them to do was, we had internal processes, we were very, very systemized, and we got some great systems in place. What I explained was, you're providing an outsourced finance function to your clients, so you're actually implementing a payroll department effectively. You're the outsourced payroll department, you're the outsourced whatever. Well, as the business owner, I need to know how those departments operate and run. I just can't put all of my trust and faith in you that it's happening, because the moment I don't, this is important, this one, guys, the moment I don't fully understand the process as a client and I don't know what's going on, I will take control of it. If I don't know what's happening, someone's got to take control of that relationship. And if I don't believe or perceive that you are controlling it, I will take control. Rightly or wrongly, I will take control of it. And ideally, as a client, as a business owner with loads of things to do, I do not want to be in control of it. I want you to be in control of it. But I need the confidence for you to do it. So we had all of our processes and systems mapped out internally. We had a lot of automation in there. It was working very well. What I wanted to do was to create that same system and to communicate it to the client. So for every single service, they get a handbook for how it works. So this is how we complete your payroll. So it has everything that happens on a monthly basis and what happens each step by what date. If you're asking for me for information on a certain date of the month and I'm not giving you that information before the 22nd of the following month, whatever it is, it's only a day late. I don't understand why you're annoyed with me. It's only 1 day late. Surely it's just going to mean that you're going to be a day late with doing it or whatever. That's not the case. We would communicate to clients, if you are a day late with this, it doesn't set the process back by a day. It doesn't add extra workload on us. We will just run last month's payroll. And then you're going to have a correction to make. And if there's any additional work on top of that, you're going to pay for that as well. So the reason why you have to do this, there has to be consequences. If there's no consequences, your clients will continue to behave in the same way. Same with kids. Clients are like kids. I would always laugh at my mate. He'd be sat with his kids and he'd be like, at the dinner table, if you do that, I don't know, I'm picking on you here, I'm sorry about that, but if you do that again, you go into bed. And then the kid would do it again. And he'd say, I said, if you do that again, you go into bed. And the kid would, right, come on, oh, I'm sorry, okay, well, sit there and eat your dinner. I'm like, what are you training your kid? You're training your kid, there's no consequences. My wife and I would have always had a very clear rule, which is, if you say something, you follow through with it. Do that again, you go to bed. She did it, and off to bed she goes. And it's heartbreaking as a parent. You don't want to have to do it, lying in bed. I'm really sorry, I'll come back. No, you won't. You're staying in bed. But tomorrow when I tell you, if you do that again, you're going to bed, you will understand it. We need to be protective. We need to train, we need to be parents of our children. And children need parenting. Clients need parenting as well. We need to train them. You've studied this. You know how this process works. Yeah? You're the experts in this. You have to run your process. And the thing to say to the client is, for the fee that we're charging you, that the only way I can guarantee that fee is if we stick to this process. Any deviation at all means I can now no longer stick to that fee. Do you understand that? Yeah? This is our process. This is how we work. We're not going to make deviations for anybody. If you want your payroll run in a very unique way, please go and find a firm that runs it. We spend time researching, understanding, training, understanding the very best way to do this. We are experts at what we do. I'm not going to run it any other way. This is how it's going to work if you want to work with us. But you have to be able to communicate that to a client. So we would show every single part of the software. We would train the client in all of these different things. And we'd have a page in here that's called Playing Fair. How we play fair with this service and what the consequences will be to you not playing fair with this service. It's really important. It's your game, guys, your rules. People have to play by your rules. You're the expert. You're not being fair to your client if you allow them to do it in their own way. So that's the price and that's the scope. And I just want to touch upon this final point because people don't talk about this. And this is where so you've got to be charging for everything that you do. You have to manage the scope. You have to charge good fees because only once you start to build the margin into this service can you be finding the time to invest in the systems, invest in the processes, invest in the marketing. Can you have time to speak to clients, etc.? Can you be investing in your own training and your own development and your continual improvement? If you're not doing that, you can't be getting better, you'll be getting worse. We need to be continually improving, but you can't do that if you don't charge enough. If you want to operate the same as everyone else and offer the lowest level of service and charge the lowest fee, you'll be compared to the market. You'll be compared to, and the moment you compare to everyone else, you've only got one thing to compete with, which is price. And then at that point, you start to spiral down. But the moment you start to bring in another level of expertise and show them real value with what you do, at that point, you can start to move the other way and start to move the price up. That's the basics. That's just ground zero. We've got to get to that point. Beyond that, we can start thinking about client experience. People don't often talk about experience, but you'll know about systemization, right? So you know about systemizing and the importance of systemizing. We systemize because we want consistency, we want accuracy, we want to be able to build something that we can train members of staff in, we want something that can scale, etc. That's why people build systems. The ultimate reason for systemization is to create incredible client experiences. That is the top level of systemization, but most people don't get there. The experience that you provide to your client changes how your client feels. And your client will remember how you've made them feel long after they've forgotten what you've done for them. So the experience is not a fluffy thing. The experience is the highest level of systemization. I'm going to, there's a hotel near Ripon called Grantley Hall. It was voted the top hotel in the country last year. Beautiful place. And my wife and I go there kind of once a year. Lovely place to go to. The experience is exceptional, right? So as you would expect. So you pull up at the gate, and there's like a long driveway that you drive down. You pull up at the first gate, and they take your name. What's your name? Thank you. Okay. They open the gate, and down the driveway you go. You get to the next guy, or whoever it is. They come up to your car and say, hello, Mr. and Mrs. Ashford. Welcome to Grantley Hall. And you're like, your first thing is, how do you know my name? You've just told the guy at the gate your name. He's just rang down. It's not like a mystery, yeah? But this guy now greets you by the name. I'll take your car keys off you, thank you, sir. If it's an electric car, would you like us to charge it for you while we have it here? Okay, thank you. Don't worry about your cases. They'll be in your room. There's a champagne reception waiting for you. You'll be taken through there and everything's sorted out for you. Just an incredible level of experience that you get, and you're happy to pay what they charge you. I was just thinking, I've done these things while I've been sat in there waiting. When I turned up, I was sat outside. So what I'm showing you now is just some thoughts I've come up with. So I think we could really explore this area further. Do you send a welcome note to each new member of staff that your clients sign up? Do you? I've just done this with my last 2 members of staff. Yes. The feedback from when they went into so they got them before they actually joined the firm. And when they went into the induction day, I don't see them on the first day. Yeah. The feedback that they gave the recruitment officer in our firm was just amazing, and it really spurred me on to do this going forward. Yeah. Brilliant. So this can be automated. So I believe that, you know, so for your clients, you're running payroll for your clients, yeah? So their members of staff should be getting training in how to be working with you, training in the software that they're going to interact with, training in how to make an expense claim, etc., training how to give you the information that you need, etc., all of these things. Well, to my mind, it's your responsibility to train those members of staff in that, so you can have a really nice online video course, very simply done. There's software out there that would do this very easily, that you could track to see if they've watched it. You could ask them some questions on it as well, do a little quiz, etc. So you could send a gift card out to all new members of staff that get added onto payroll, that go out, that thank them, that welcome them, that explain how you run payroll with a little QR code on, that you click, they go through, they complete their induction in the software, etc., and they get a thank you note afterwards or whatever, right? That can all be automated. They're handwritten notes that can be automated as part of your process that will just be sent off and automatically sent to that member of staff. That's a kind of a wow level of experience to my mind. I also created this while I was sat out there. I thought, wouldn't it be nice if, as a business owner, I don't need to know the details, right? But I'm a business owner. If I got a payroll report once a month, just a really high-level report that was really simple, just showing me how many staff have been paid across what countries, what my Glassdoor score, EMPS score, expenses, how many new starters I've got, how many leaves I've got, attendance breakdown, and any key points to note. Like, how nice would that be if I just got as the business owner, just a top-level report to take into my board meeting each month. I went onto Canva. Do you use Canva? Have you heard of Canva? And I just typed in infographic, yeah? It pulled up that for me, and I just changed some numbers on there. Now, what the information I put in might be rubbish. You might know of better information to be sharing with people, but you're doing great things every month for your clients. If you don't tell them, how on earth are they going to know? So I believe it's really important to communicate all of those great things that you've done. You've got all this data, But again, because we're just happy to get the work out of the door and we're charging a low fee for it, we can't even think about investing in sending reports, sending gifts to new starters, etc., and doing this higher level of service. But I believe it's really possible for you and doesn't have to be too much work. A lot of that infographic, when you click on it, it can pull all the data from a Google Sheet. You can pull all the data into that for you and just send it out. It's minutes of work.
A lot of dashboards will do that for you now.
Oh yeah? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so what we use, literally the moment the employer logs on, they've got all that data already on there for them.
Yeah. But can you export that, package it up and send it to them as well? Or?
You do, but the moment they log in anyway, because they've got to then log in, check and approve the payroll.
Right, okay.
Right there for them.
Yeah.
First login page. Well, it could be, yeah,
Yes. Yeah, but it's just, again, it's just important that you communicate in all of the great work that you do. So guys, I think there is a huge gap, and I don't see many firms making this leap. I think there's a real exciting opportunity, but it does require a leap to get across there. It requires a leap of faith to go over there. I don't think we're all going to solve it today, but what I love about this group and what Barry's doing is the way that we do solve this is by coming together and by agreeing collectively that there is an opportunity here. We are brilliant at what we do. We do provide a fantastic service to our clients. We should be recognised for it. Our clients need to value what we do as well and need to understand it better. And there's an opportunity here for just do something exciting. We don't have to fight over the scraps with everybody else. We can actually reinvent it. And that was the reason, Barry, right, when you were talking to me, and you said, will you come and do this? I wanted to come and do this because I think this is an exciting space and I don't see anyone else tackling it and trying to solve it. So I think it's great at what you're doing. So we don't, I'm not going to take these time for these questions, but these are always the 3 questions. You're going to a workshop this afternoon, Barry, is that right? So whenever I do a conference like this, guys, these are the 3 questions I would always ask people to take away with. So I'm not going to ask you to do these questions now, but certainly to think about them. But what's the one big thing that you know you need to change? What's the one big difficult thing? Just write the question down for now, guys. You can take the question away to think about later this afternoon or whatever. What's the one big thing that you know deep down needs to change? It might be that the partners need to get on board with it or whatever. Now, these might be difficult decisions. You don't need to know how to solve these yet, but we at least need to know what's that one big thing which, if you change this, would solve nearly everything. Yeah? The next one is, and what's stopping you? What's stopping you from doing that? That's quite an important bit. What's the one big thing we need to do? We need to sack that partner. What's stopping me? I don't have the power to sack the partner. Okay. So anyway, whatever it is that you need to do. What's the small decision that you could easily make right now? Just a small decision. So it could be, well, look, the big thing that we need to do is we need to reprice all of our payroll clients. One small decision, that complete pain in the backside client that always does our head in, that we'd be better off if we got rid of. You've got one already, you're laughing. You got a few, okay, cool. A small decision could be, well, let's reprice one of them. Let's give it a go. Let's try something out. We've got nothing to lose here, you know. That could be a small decision. And then the last one is, what action will you have taken by the end of today? These conferences are great. They create great energy. We come up with really good ideas. You're absolutely buzzing and fired up, ready to leave here and kind of run through walls. But as you leave here, you check your emails, something's hit the fan, and then we're into the rest of it, the rest of the week. It will diminish and diminish and diminish. The likelihood of you doing something falls off a cliff the moment you leave this room today. So what I always try to do is to take an action whilst you're here. It could be as simple as messaging your team and saying, we're going to run a book club next month and we're going to read this book. It could be as simple as booking a meeting in the diary with someone else next week and saying, we can have a meeting for an hour. I need to discuss some ideas with you. That could be one action that you take, but that small action actually starts the momentum going, and that's really important. So the reason I get you to do that is to avoid what most people do when they leave these type of conferences and they're all fired up, they're all supercharged, they're ready to go for it, and bang, they just don't make the breakthrough that they want, and then they've ended up wasting their time. We've got to try and make that breakthrough. And what I will say to you guys is this. It's all hard. What I've described to you here today, what I'm proposing that should be done in this space and by you guys is hard. Going back to a client and saying that I need to double your fee for payroll is a hard thing to do. Yeah? Continuing to charge a very low fee and not be valued for that service is also a hard thing to do. Yeah? Going back to a partner and having a difficult conversation with them about why we need to make this change because morale is so low and we need to make this is a hard thing to do. Again, allowing morale to be so low is a hard thing. It's all hard. There's no solution here that isn't hard. What I'm asking you to do is to consider doing the hard things that you actually stand a chance of benefiting from. Yeah? It's not going to be an overnight solution, but over time, it's to choose the hard things that actually benefit you because it's all hard. 1 second. This is my quote I love. Don't wish for better winds, set a better sail. Thank you.
Yeah.
The lady just had a question there, Barry, sorry. Thank you.